I generally enjoyed Dark Water, but there is one scene quite early on that basically ruined the entire film for me. But it is a bit of a spoiler, so I'll save that for a spoiler warning in a moment. This film was released in 2005, directed by Walter Salles, and it's about a mother and her daughter who move into this really run-down apartment block, or this apartment building, and there's water leaking through the ceiling. And when the mother goes upstairs to investigate, she finds that there's a lot of water in the apartment upstairs. And then her daughter begins to have an imaginary friend. And, well, I won't say too much more about that at the moment, but I will say that there's a strong mystery surrounding who this imaginary friend is and why there's a lot of water. And I found it to be quite atmospheric, but I think it wasn't so much the atmosphere that I liked. It relied on jump scares a little bit, but it was murky. You know, the water was dirty, it felt grubby, it made me feel sick in a really good way. It's one of those horror films that just feels icky, and it works so well. It is suspenseful at times, but for me, it just made me feel dirty. It's a building I don't want to go in. It gave me those really horrible, creepy vibes, and I liked it. I enjoyed that. But the other reason I liked it is because I think Ceci was a great character. She's played by Ariel Gade, and she's really likable. She's a really likable little girl, and I think that that was really important because it was important to be able to want the best for her, to follow her story. Jennifer Connelly is really good as the mother, but I have to say they tried too hard. They tried to inject some backstory for the mother with how her own mother treated her or didn't treat her, as the case may be, and to give an air of some mental instability surrounding the mother. But they didn't lean into that enough that it was relevant. In fact, it felt pointless, like it shouldn't have been there, and I didn't care for it very much. Maybe one could argue that that element affected what Dahlia ultimately decided to do at the end of the film. I won't spoil it by saying that, but for me personally, I just felt like it didn't work. They tried to make it a psychological thriller, but really it was just a straight up horror. I can't really explain why without giving anything away. So I guess I'll go into spoiler details now and explain a bit more about what I mean, and also why I feel like one scene early on ruined the entire film for me. It didn't give me all of the answers, but it gave me the big answer. So, big spoilers from now, and the scene that ruined it for me is actually maybe in the first 5 minutes, and it's when Dahlia is viewing the apartment building, and Ceci runs up onto the roof, and we see the big water tank. And because this is called Dark Water, I knew it had something to do with water, and I saw that and I just thought, there's somebody in there, there's something in there. And I didn't know exactly what. To be honest, my initial thought was Ceci's going to go in that. That was my initial thought. So it wasn't completely a giveaway. But then a couple of scenes later, when Dahlia turns on the tap and hair comes out with the water, that's when I knew there was somebody else in there. Had Ceci not gone up onto that roof, had we not seen that shot with the water tank, I probably wouldn't have immediately gone, someone's in the pipes, because I would have just assumed it was a metaphor, or maybe somebody had drowned and this is how they were getting the message across. I wouldn't have assumed they were in the tank on the roof. So that actually really ruined it for me and gave away far too much far too quickly. But obviously it didn't tell me everything. And what I was going to say, or what I tried to say without spoiling it, with regards to Dahlia having a little bit of a backstory about her mother and how she felt with her mother's treatment, maybe that led her to do what she did at the end and giving up her own life to care for the ghost girl. But would she, I mean, she also did that to save her own daughter, but I feel like that's not necessary to have that kind of backstory and hints of mental instability with her. It kind of felt like they were trying to make an impressive and, an impressive psychological thriller with multiple layers and complex characters, but it wasn't. It was a simple story about a girl who had somehow died in the water tank, and she didn't want to be left alone, so she was doing absolutely everything she could to make her presence known. It's as simple as that. But you don't need to overcomplicate it, because that in itself is fascinating. And had we not had that scene on the roof, I think it would have been a great film with some padding from the mother's backstory that didn't need to be there. But other than that, it would have been actually pretty great. And I think I would have been hooked to the end to see what the mystery was. But I already filled in some of the gaps quite early on. So it's not perfect. But I do recommend it. As I said, it was quite atmospheric, mostly because of the design of the building. It just felt grubby and nasty and not a place where I'd want to be. It's a kind of place that would give me the creeps in real life, and that worked very well. And as I said, there are a couple of jump scares and things, but it's more fascinating than it is scary. Disgusting more than it is scary. But it worked. It worked well. Not quite the mystery I'd hoped, because it gave away too much too soon. But other than that, I'd say Dark Water. I mean, I've ruined it now for you, but I did say spoiler warning. But if you haven't seen it and you're still listening and you're looking for a film that's quite atmospheric with some good acting and some likable characters, it's not too bad, and one I'd say is probably worth checking out.